All right, so I'll read again. A company has an AWS account used for software engineering. The AWS account has access to the company's on-premises data center through a pair of AWS Direct Connect connections. All non-VPC traffic routes to the virtual private gateway. A development team recently created an AWS Lambda function through the console. The development team needs to allow the function to access a database that runs in a private subnet in the company's data center. Which solution will meet this requirement? A says configure a Lambda function to run in the VPC with the appropriate security group. B says set up a VPN connection from AWS to the data center and route the traffic from the Lambda function through the VPN. Update the route tables in the VPC to allow the Lambda function to access the on-premises data center through Direct Connect. Answers.
Only one.
Yeah, would you choose one?
I'm supposed to choose one.
Answers no dey flow.
No, we think. Try for think of us. It's a simple
Charlie,
question. And then twist
of
stuff.
so make it take off. Yeah. So there's a look. That is how we should approach it, right? Take your time. So you see, that's why I was reading. You read the questions full stop by full stop. So you group them. So as you are reading, you are building up your answer. So the first sentence has an AWS account, and they here. Now the second sentence has access to the company's on-premises data center
Choose C.
through a pair of direct connections. So that's one point. And then all the VPC traffic routes to the virtual private gateway. Now a development team recently created an AWS Lambda function through the console. The development team needs to allow the function to access a database that runs in a private subnet in the company's data center. Okay, so okay, say go choose C. All right. Mr. Maxon also says C. Answers. We have only two. Today. Let's try our best and then close at 10. If we finish the questions and then we solve the other ones, then we'll use the rest of the time to still discuss the exam. And then I'll psych people, those who are still planning not to write. Okay, Derek also says C. Is Sita here? Sita, bring your answer.
She said C.
Of late, you know the C time answers at all. Yes, do the same thing too.
So I see James Dark. This is unrelated, but I want to ask: are you the same James from where? Is it Premest?
Yes.
You are the same person, eh?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I think you are a group member, right?
Yes, that's right. Maeva.
Correct. Because I've been seeing it and I was like, I know this name. I know this. Charlie, we'll finish. I beg, send me message.
Okay.
WhatsApp, we'll talk.
I hear you, boss.
I beg, I know if it was. Zita, sorry, I didn't see.
Isaac, you there be boss, so I can't scan.
Charlie, we did pray.
You be broke
Okay.
boss.
Okay, so I think
Oh.
all the answers are towards C. And I like that because you are all wrong.
Wow.
So if we remember the labs, is Akusia here?
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't type your answer, but what would you have chosen? I want you to explain this one. So if you get it correct, then you explain.
I don't know.
Okay. So there was a lab on Lambda. I hope we all remember.
Like,
Yes. We did a lab on Lambda. And I think when I was recording the video, I mentioned that, Lambda per se is, you don't deploy a Lambda function in a VPC, right? It can sit outside your VPC and still work. But then when you have resources in a private subnet, then you will have to configure the Lambda function to run in the VPC, right? With the appropriate security group. So I'm in my console here. Good. Let's go to Lambda. And per the question two, it says the development team needs to allow the function to access a database, right? To access a database that runs in the private subnet in the company's data center. So for the Lambda to be able to access the database, it needs to be in the VPC, right? So I think advanced settings, so you can see if you have to enable VPC, and then you choose a VPC, and then this is what it says: connect your function to a VPC to access private resources during invocation. So the correct answer here is configure the Lambda function to run in a VPC.
Isaac, what makes C wrong?
So C will not do anything. So route tables, you configure route tables to route traffic, right? So updating the route tables in the VPC, there is no way you would, because the Lambda, when you are routing traffic, you are doing routing on the route table. You are routing IP addresses to either an internet gateway or a NAT gateway or what have you, right? If it's a VPC connection and then all that. Yes, but you don't route traffic to like services, like I don't know how to put it.
So that you see the Lambda checkbox that you checked.
Yeah.
The VPC from the console.
Yeah.
Don't you think it needs some kind of configuration within the VPC?
No. So after you do this, right? So so if you enable VPC, so if I select the VPC and I'll choose a subnet. So here I'll choose a private subnet, right? And then I'll choose a security group. So I will choose a security group that allows what's it called? I might configure a security group for the Lambda, right? So if I am allowing probably HTTP traffic from everywhere, then I'll configure the database or the private resources security group to allow traffic only from the Lambda security group.
Okay. 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 So I think this particular demonstration strikes through three things, including the security group, the VPC.
Yes, correct.
All right.
So route table there, it wouldn't actually do anything to the Lambda because it's you route traffic to it. But here they would want the function rather to
But I want to ask one thing too before we proceed.
right.
You see the direct connect.
Right.
It's basically you connecting. You see, out there in the States, they have AWS they have cables and some. I think they have the name. Is it POP or something? Locations where you can literally connect your cables to their service directly to their network.
Yes, their network.
Yes, that's what called the direct connect.
That's direct connect. You don't use the internet.
Okay. Internet at all. Yes,
yeah,
just patch into their lines.
Yes, because you are using that one to access your private resources. There is no using direct connect to access public resources. You bab.
Exactly. Okay. So I think the route tables has to do with the NAT and the what do you call it? The gateway.
Internet gateway, correct.
Issue. So direct connects, you don't need those things. All right.
Yes. And then for B, if you are setting up a VPN connection, then you are going to use the internet, right? And there's still there is some routing here to do, which is actually not necessary. Creating this one is even out of order. Creating an elastic IP, configuring the Lambda to send traffic through the elastic IP without now. Okay, so anytime, so Damien chose A, right? So anytime there is a direct connect thing, anything that comes with direct connect, you will have to always think about no internet connection. So VPN is out, routing traffic to internet gateway is out, unless they are saying that, okay, they have some connections, direct connect connections to their on-prem, and then they have VPN for other branches. That one, the answer is leading towards Cloud Hub. The opportunity to use to take advantage of different connections, right? To connect, to do interconnection, right? So they have one, maybe their headquarters, having a direct connect.
Please, I would answer.
Right, so you have your headquarters having a direct.
Mute your body.
This one will suck out.
Sorry, I beg.
Right, so you have a direct.
Sorry, I can't let go.
Okay, right. So a company has maybe its headquarters having a direct connection to their on-prem or their AWS resources, and they have other branches who have VPN connections, right, to their AWS resources. Now, you would want to take advantage of these VPN connections and the direct connect connections to have an interconnection between those on-prem branches and then the headquarters. There's something called Cloud Hub, right? So the Cloud Hub works this way. Let me annotate, right? So you have a direct. Oh, Prince, why you choose blue? Let me even use red, right? So you have AWS here. Don't laugh at my cloud. And then you have
cloud.
Right, so let me add another one here. So they might trick you with transit gateway, but please avoid that temptation. So this one has a direct connect here, right? And then this one has VPN. So VPN, I will use, this is padlock. This one also has VPN, right? Oh, do you fine? Okay, this one also has VPN, right? Now they will ask you, they will want to take advantage of this connection, right? The connections to have a connection between each other. As I said, main fast transit gateway. So there is something called Cloud Hub. So Cloud Hub is able to take advantage of the connection from here, right? From here to here, and then from here to here to have something like this. Wow. What a drawing. Right, to have something like this, right? That is just how the Cloud Hub connection is. And then the same thing happens here. So the same thing also happens here, right? So with this one can communicate with this one can communicate with this one can communicate with this. Transit gateway is only when you want to do hub, they call it hub and spoke. Okay, so you have the gateway in the middle and then Yanum Fono, right? So all goes into here, right? So we want to connect multiple VPCs. Please, is that clear?
I need to see the difference because the first one you say VPCs. VPCs to connect to each other through the cloud app.
No, so
right?
here, these are not VPCs, so these are on-prem sites.
On-premises data centers.
Yes,
Connecting to VPNs.
correct.
Okay,
So here
so that is the difference.
Yes, they are connecting through VPN. So they're like multiple, you are using multiple VPN connections.
Okay. So
And
the
then
difference between VPN connections and then VPCs. So the VPCs is transit gateway.
Correct.
All right.
So here, these are VPCs, right? And then these are on-prem data centers who have VPN connections with their AWS. But here, they are all on what? AWS. So if you have an on-prem, then on-prem can also take advantage of probably a VPN connection or a direct connect connection to connect to the transit gateway as well. Right? But you still have to set up the direct connection agent, all those things. Right? And these situations like this are rare. You don't see them. You are mostly seeing them. I mean, the examination is going to ask you on some of these things. Please take note of it. Let's move on. All right. So here we choose A. Okay. Question 12. A company that uses AWS organizations runs 150 applications across 30 different AWS accounts. The company used AWS cost and usage reports to create a new report in the management account. The report is delivered to an Amazon S3 bucket that is replicated to a bucket in the data collection account. The company's senior leadership wants to view a custom dashboard that provides NAT gateway cost each day, starting at the beginning of the current month. The questions are plenty. Now here, let's look at that. Which solution will meet this requirement? Share an Amazon QuickSight dashboard that includes the requested table visual, and then configure QuickSight to use data sync to query the new report. B, share an Amazon QuickSight dashboard that includes the requested table visual. Configure QuickSight to use Amazon Athena to query the new reports. C, share an Amazon CloudWatch dashboard that includes the requested table visual. Then configure CloudWatch to use data sync to query a new report. And this is share Amazon CloudWatch dashboard that includes the requested table visual. Configure CloudWatch to use Amazon Athena to query the new report. Let me scroll to the question so that I can read it again. So answers. Okay, so James says B. The answers are not coming. Moon processing question in here.
Yeah, I'll go for D.
Okay, let me for D Sumbra. Okay, so Derek says D. Is there a way to even increase the spacing? Add space. The course here. Right. So Derek goes for D. Mr. Maxon goes for B. Okay. Let me. Is it a small coming? Oh, yeah, 20 or said it. Yes, we are almost 20 here. Ancestors in Brasa. Yeah, Dawson. Let it be encouraging. Okay, so we have a lot of these. We have a lot of these. All right. Anybody want to explain their choice?
Yes, I want to try.
All right, sure.
So I will choose B because
Right.
QuickSight is more or less used for creating dashboards.
Right, correct.
Then we use Athena 2 for querying data.
Right.
So with the two in the same response, and the company, I mean, from the question, it looks like reports are gathered.
Yeah.
And the leadership wants to see a particular dashboard
Yeah.
to see what happens almost every month.
Correct.
And so I feel these two do the job. Whilst we use Athena to query the data, then you use QuickSight to do the visualization. That's why I chose B.
That's actually correct. All right. So here, what we can rule out from here is A, data sync is for replication, right? So the ones that include data sync or will be ruled out. Now, the difference will be between CloudWatch and Athena, right? CloudWatch and Athena. Now, the report, it says the report is delivered to what? An S3 bucket. So that's one thing that we should also see is sent to an S3 bucket that is replicated to a bucket in a data collection account. Okay, so all the reports are delivered into an S3 bucket, and we know if data is in S3, QuickSight, we are able to use QuickSight to design dashboards from reports, and then Athena can also query directly from what S3. This is something that CloudWatch cannot do. So CloudWatch generates its own data. So if we have CloudWatch monitoring the data, right? If we had CloudWatch monitoring the data, then that is or monitoring some, the NAT gateway uses or something, then this would also be correct, right? This would be correct than this. But since the data is delivered to an S3 bucket, QuickSight is the best option, right? Looking at this use case. Let me see. I had an explanation. I saved an explanation somewhere. I think in my note on phone or something. I'm trying to bring it up and see. Okay, I'm not seeing that, but I think it should be in my chat GPT or Monica or something. Find. So Athena. Oh, it's even here. Yes, I think yes. I looked at the same question here. So the explanation correct. So the reason why, so as I said, so D is also less suitable because CloudWatch is primarily used for monitoring AWS resources and services. And while it can ingest data from S3, it may not provide the flexibility and the customization offered by QuickSight for creating detailed dashboard. So therefore, B is the option. So, CloudWatch, you create CloudWatch dashboard for metrics that you would want to monitor, right? But with QuickSight, you are able to create like dashboard based on your preference, right? Just like using Excel. So if you have a whole bunch of data, you're able to create any dashboard that you want, and your dashboard might differ from another person's dashboard from the same data. But with CloudWatch, you are limited to certain metrics that you would want to. So if it's a CPU utilization that you want to monitor, or traffic in or traffic out that you would want to monitor, they are pre-configured stuff there. But QuickSight is just like using a Power BI tool to create a dashboard, right? So that makes it the best answer.
So the fact that a custom dashboard was mentioned and then also provides a particular
Flexibility,
flexibility for just NAT gateway costs each day, starting
right?
at the beginning of the current month. So it's very specific. And so that's the only reason I would choose QuickSight.
Right.
The data sync down there.
Data sync is for data sync is mainly for data migration or data synchronization, right? Where you even have
I'm worried as to why they brought it there to query reports. Does it query reports?
that's just the whole thing. Because this whole argument of saying say AWS won't trick you, I don't understand.
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
I don't understand unless there is a functionality by data sync that we don't know.
That's what I worry about. If they put them there boldly twice, using QuickSight as first one.
You said?
Who could base ChatGPT? Sometimes you go
Chairman,
give us
Chairman
Yeah.
do am already. Chairman
see.
do am already.
You see, data sync is typically used for data synchronization tasks rather than querying data for visualization purposes.
Data sync, I let them sit time to say if you do on-prem and then cloud migration. That's
Migration.
when you use data sync. So
Because
they
data sync,
wonder why.
You see, data sync is that is if you don't want to do the lift and shift thing, right? You
Yeah.
have a data sync agent installed on your on-prem, and you now link it to the data sync agent on AWS. So what it does is that it replicates or it creates a lightweight of your on-prem infrastructure on AWS, and then it just syncs the data, right? Till probably you finally have all your data on AWS, and then you now switch, then it brings up like a full-blown AWS infrastructure for you. So I don't know why this was brought here.
Somehow I feel like they are using it to test your knowledge. Because if you go and choose something like data sync to look at reports, then Charlie, it means that you shine like you don't know what you do. So they go feedback you done. That is why I just need to give you the results immediately. Then they watch some things.
Yeah, I feel like because the guys said the email when you finish, they will send you an email that like you have completed the exam and they are reviewing it. So you get your reports later within, I think, 24 hours. So I feel like probably there is a system that reviews, you know, your selection, and they feel like, okay,
they review your knowledge, and like your knowledge of the services and things. So if you don't know what you do, you just select something. I'm sure we feel
probably some of the things they might even consider and give you the mark.
Yes.
Maybe the
I
solution.
Yeah, I feel it's possible.
Was
if you know your way around some of the services, you know, go to select data sync as something really watch reports and things.
And I'm sure the 15 non-scoring in the crowd, maybe they review to see, say, okay, what's in way, and the info non-scoring and show. Because I guess I got the CCP, there is something that is marking you as you are answering. So immediately you finish, no, your pass and fail will come. That's how the CCP is. They've programmed you to mark you as you are answering. When you review it and then you change your answer and then you are correct, that it will mark you. So immediately you are done, no, the result comes. Anyway, into us. So a company uses 50 terabytes of data for reporting. The company wants to move this data from on-premises to AWS. A custom application in the company's data center runs a weekly data transformation job. The company plans to pause the application until the data transfer is complete and needs to begin the transfer process as soon as possible. The data center does not have any available network bandwidth. So this is one keyword, that they don't have available network bandwidth for additional workloads. A solutions architect must transfer the data and must configure the transformation job to continue to run in the AWS cloud. Which solution will meet this requirement with the least operational overhead? So A says use data sync to move the data and create a custom transformation job by using AWS Glue. B says order an AWS snow cone device to move the data, deploy the transformation application, transformation application to the device. C, order an AWS Snowball Edge storage optimized device. Copy the data to the device and create custom transformation job by using AWS Glue. D, order an AWS Edge storage optimized device that includes Amazon EC2. Copy the data to the device and create a new EC2 instance on AWS to run the transformation application. Answers. So I have 2 Ds, I have a C. Okay, Prince Abeg, can I explain your answer? James, when you finish, you also explain yours.
I choose D because I forget what AWS is. But I feel like the company wanting to pause the application until the digital transfer is complete. Like we use the Snowball Edge storage optimized device.
Okay.
Then copy finish. Then the company plans to pause begin the transfer as soon as possible. Data center does not have any available network. Switch architectures And
Okay.
a configuration the transmission job to continue to run in the AWS cloud. So as if for running for AWS, I feel like maybe an instance must be created for it to run. So how
Okay.
about I choose?
Okay, James, kindly. Okay, so but before James, so Glue, AWS Glue is for extracting,
ETL.
transforming, and then loading data. So that's ETL. Yes, I could say that's ETL, right? So
Yeah.
and it's also like a fully managed service, right? Okay, James, I beg explain yours.
Okay. So from the question, I see about 3 prompts that inform my answer.
Right.
I saw 50 terabytes of data,
Correct.
and I saw more or less a transfer from a local data center to the cloud.
Right.
And the last one is they are willing to pause whatever they are doing
Right.
until the transfer is complete. And I think the last one is there is no available network bandwidth for this transfer.
Right.
And so the last prompt made me rule out data sync.
Correct.
So I came to see because Snowball can do the job, because within 1 week, you can actually request for the briefcase, load it from your data center, send it back to AWS, or within 7 days, it will reach their end and they will load it for you. So in 7 days, you can get your data to AWS. Then you copy the data and you can use the glue to do the transformation. So for me, I think C does the job without any overhead, because Snowball is managed by AWS.
Right.
The same thing with Glue. So you don't need any extra thing from the company.
Correct.
Yeah, so Glue eliminates any overheads of creating an extra instance and all. But so yeah,
Correct.
I think this is
Yeah.
good answer.
Yes, because for the new EC2 that you are going to create, you have to manage it.
Yeah.
So yes, so C is correct. And the snow cone, I think the biggest size is what? Is it 14 terabytes or is it 16 terabytes? Right. So snow cone also isn't it? So the snowball edge. So those of you who if the bandwidth thing, everyone say only internet. Let's put it that way. Right? They don't have internet. So the snowball edge device allows you to do what we call edge computing, right? So you're able to order it, put your data on it, and then you are able to create a transformation. You're able to create a transformation work by using the AWS Glue. You're able to do all of those things on-prem, right? So anytime when you have like the bandwidth, the data can be synced with your AWS services or resources.
The Glue, you say the extraction, transformation, and what's the LB? What's
Load.
load? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Me say the L every day they forget.
The Glue, they forget them one time.
So a company.
So you see, a question like this, sorry, a question like this, if you select D,
Right.
you may not necessarily get everything wrong. In case they may search something to consider you. At least you have an idea.
Right.
But if you go select data sync for this question, they know say Unimbia can. Like they understand what they talk. Yeah.
Yes. I mean that's true. Anyway. So I feel like the reason for these reviews is just for some of these considerations.
Yeah.
Because by guy we like pass Max Onya and you see no according to like so yeah, I mean boy A company performs monthly maintenance on its AWS infrastructure. During these maintenance activities, the company needs to rotate the credentials of its Amazon RDS for MySQL database across multiple AWS regions. Which solution will meet these requirements with the least operational overhead? Gerald has he say can react to the message? Okay, they. All right. Let me take the question again. A company performs monthly maintenance on its AWS infrastructure. During these maintenance activities, the company needs to rotate the credentials for its Amazon RDS for MySQL database across multiple AWS regions. Which solution will meet these requirements with the least operational overhead? So here we are looking at operational excellence, right? Here. So A says store the credentials as secrets in AWS Secrets Manager, and then use multi-region secret replication for the required regions, and configure Secrets Manager to rotate the secret on a schedule. B says use the credentials as secrets in AWS Systems Manager by creating a secure string parameter. Use multi-region secret replication for the required regions. Configure Systems Manager to rotate the secrets on schedule. C. Store the credentials in an Amazon S3 bucket that has server-side encryption enabled. Use Amazon Event Bridge to invoke an AWS Lambda function to rotate the credentials. D. Encrypt the credentials as secrets by using AWS KMS service, multi-region customer managed keys. Store the secret in an Amazon DynamoDB global table. Use AWS Lambda function to retrieve the secret from DynamoDB, and use RDS API to rotate the secrets. So this is our Prince work as a Ukofed dia there yesterday. Because all this is like how do I put it? It is not needed. C and D they look plenty. So where is C? Yes, so it's just you are just incurring costs and then operational overhead. And okay, so I see AAA. Okay, so right. All right, so that's correct. Now B, right? Systems manager, creating a secure string in parameter means that you are using parameter store. Okay, and then if you are using parameter store, then it means you will have to rather. Because if you get all correct, then choose D. Then for SAC you. AWS will even take your CCP certificate as well. Aha, right? So with parameter store, you know that these credentials comes from, so you store that. So for RDS like this, you have to create your password and everything in RDS, and then you now come and store them in parameter store, and then the RDS will now be taking the credentials from the parameter store. So you are only saving it as a secure string, but you are not able to rotate the credentials, right? So it is Secret Manager that gives that option to rotate, and then I think the default is 1 year or so. But we'll look at security like proper, right? So that we all get to appreciate some of these things. So I think by now we are all getting our head around how, the exam we want you to. So what are there now? Like it's plenty, right? What's your questions now? Sometimes it's plenty, but even the answers will give you a clue as to which direction the question is trying to put you. So I think that we just need to take our time. even though it is a timed work, but if you still take your time and then answer, you still be able to make the time, right? 15. So a company has two accounts, AWS account, production and development. So here immediately you see questions like this. Then you are looking at
Julius, calm down. Julius, calm down. You have started again. It's our life now. Training kind questions.
You can question the way I want to say a patch. Right. So when you see questions like this, immediately you see two accounts. Then you are things that should pop up into your head is probably AWS organizations, IAM, those things. It's as you are reading the question, now you are narrowing down on certain things. Production and then development. The company needs to push code changes in the development account to the production account. In the alpha phase, so alpha phase, the emphasis in the first phase. All these things, don't let those ones confuse you. In the alpha phase, only 2 senior developers on the development team need access to the production account. In the beta phase, more developers will need access to perform testing. Which solution will meet these requirements? So A says, create two policy documents by using the AWS management console in each account. Assign the policy to developers who need access. Mr. Maxon, it's plenty. B, create an IAM role in the development account. Grant the IAM role access to the production account and allow developers to assume the role. C says, create an IAM role in production account and define a trust policy that specifies the development account. Allow developers to assume the role. D, create an IAM group in the production account. Add the group as a principal in a trust policy that specifies the production account. Add developers to the group. After the answers number. Okay, Judy says C, Sita also says C. Oh, Asa. Ibn Mat. Where is Ibn Mat? Ibn Mat, oh, if you be laughing like you laugh already. Bring your answer. Okay, Daniela Oku says, hey, I had a mate called Daniela Oku. Are you the same Daniela Oku? That was, he was not Daniel. Eric Oku. No, say. That was Eric Oku. Oh, the answers are not coming. Okay, so Sita, would you want to explain your answer? Okay, James went for B.
Hello.
Yes, Sita.
Yeah, so I chose C because of it mentioned trust policy.
Right.
That is more like, what is the word? fine-grained, or I don't know how to put it here, I think. So since those who are supposed to have access should be just two. That's why I chose this.
Okay. Okay, James. Okay, since Prince chose B also. Okay, James. Today they talk, but so you can't talk again. So why you choose B? Daniel, you go explain your answer. Make we all learn. So James, come and explain your answer. This one, whoever will feel convince me, that be the answer we will choose. Because me too, I don't know. Okay, James.
I'm still
Okay, you are still
looking
thinking
through
about
it.
it. Okay, that's
Yes.
fine. So Prince, you just make you explain your answer.
So so the company is using two accounts, right?
Right.
And from my understanding, no, the two accounts do not interfere. There are no users. I don't know if there are users in the production account that are also in the development account. So I'm thinking if development account users need to have access to push code changes to the production account, then you need to assume an IAM role inside the development account to be able to grant access to the production account so that they can push the code. That is why I choose.
Okay. All right. So let's do some drawings here. Right. So production account is here. Right. We have development account. And then it says the company needs to push code changes in the development account to the production account. Okay. So here, who needs access to who? You understand? So this will be a resource. This will be the identity who would want to access this resource. So for anything, the development account needs to assume a right role to be able to write into the production account. So the contrast between C and then B is where the role is being created. Right? So the role should rather be in the production account. And the development account will be the trusted identity to allow the developers to be able to assume the role to push the code changes into the production account. And then also the developers will need access, right, to the production account. So they need access to the production account for testing. So when we were doing controlling access, the lab on controlling access using IAM, remember Nikhil was a developer. When we created the developer account, we had to go into the other account, right, to allow Nikhil to be able to assume roles, to be able to read or describe EC2 instances, and then also be able to test the website. So remember the first one, when you open the website as Nikhil, you only see the website title, you don't see the content. Now, when you grant read access to Nikhil, now Nikhil is able to view the full content of the website. Please, I hope the understanding is clear. So in this case, it is the developers that need access, right, to the production account to be able to test. So their role should now be created in the production account. And then yes, Sita mentioned about trust policy. So when you create a role, you need to have an entity that is being trusted to use that. And then you now allow the developers as the principals to assume that role. Please, are we clear?
Yeah.
All right. So the account should rather be in the production account.
In the production account.
Yes, not the development account. All right. So question 16. Okay, let me explain why the others are also wrong. Now, creating two policy documents by using the console and then assigning, then it means that if imagine you have 10 developers, then it means you will have to do them one after the other, right? That's like more operational overhead. Then the group, creating the group and then putting the developers in there means that every day they are going to have that, if I say that permission, right? Anybody at all in the production, but here there is a limit as to how many people need access. So that makes D also wrong. All right. 16. See plenty questions and then see the answers. This question. A company has an on-premises business application that generates hundreds of files each day. These files are stored on an SMB file share and require a low latency connection to the application service. A new company policy states all application generated files must be copied to AWS. There is already a VPN connection to AWS. The application development team does not have time to make the necessary code modifications to move the application to AWS. Which AWS service should a solutions architect recommend to allow the application to copy files to AWS? So there is Elastic File System, EFS. There's FSX for Windows File Server. There's Snowball, and there's Storage Gateway. This one, let me see. We'll ask ChatGPT again. Okay, so I see D, Prince D, Daniel says D, Sita says D. The reason why I said ask ChatGPT again, I chose D also. But I think when I asked, ChatGPT was telling me another thing. Same with Monica, unless it wasn't this question. Okay, so why not A? And why not A? I discovered this thing today. Why it is not A? Right. So EFS, even though it's a shared file system, but it's a native cloud storage system, right? It stays on the cloud. It's a native cloud storage system. Now, the confusion was between FSX for Windows file server, because we know Windows also supports SMB. But then the reason why I chose storage gateway was the fact that, where is it, crap? The team does not have time to make necessary code modifications to move the application to the AWS. But also, let's look at this. When you are setting up storage gateway, after the initial, you do the initial setup, because you have to provision. So with storage gateway, you have to set up an NFS file share, right? You will have to set up NFS file share between the on-prem and the AWS cloud. And now you will choose the storage. So if it is FSX for Windows or FSS for Lasta. I think this thing I saw this question on, and the same thing on Stefan Marek's testing.
Mommy, I didn't select Windows, the FSX for Windows because they didn't state that the
It's
on-prem
Windows.
it's running Windows somehow. So what if it's not running?
Yeah, but it is only Windows that supports pop-up wins with me. It is only Windows premium. It is only Windows that supports SMB. All right. Yeah, so it's, I think, storage gateway. Oh, so I think, yeah, they didn't specify. Okay, correct. Storage gateway is correct. So since they didn't specify that it runs Windows, and storage gateway actually supports, storage to transfer to all these types, volume, tape, yes, all those things. Yeah, so that's correct. All right. A company runs a stateful production application on Amazon EC2 instances. The application requires at least 2 instances to always be running. This one, designing for high availability. A solutions architect needs to design a highly available and fault-tolerant architecture for the application. The solutions architect creates an auto-scaling group of EC2 instances, which sets of additional steps should the solutions architect take to meet these requirements. So the requirement here is to make sure that always 2 instances are running, at least. So it's at least 2 instances are running. So A says, set the auto-scaling group's minimum capacity to 2. Deploy one on-demand instance in one availability zone, and then one on-demand instance in a second availability zone. So what would happen if they just said deploy one on-demand instance in each availability zone? Now a sentence in simple.
Like I short. We are watching much content.
B, set the auto-scaling group's minimum capacity to 4. Deploy 2 on-demand instances in one availability zone and 2 on-demand instances in the second availability zone. C, set the auto scaling group's minimum capacity to 2. Deploy 4 spot instances in one availability zone. D, set auto scaling group's minimum capacity to 4 and deploy 2 on-demand instances in one availability zone and 2 spot instances in second availability zone. I think this one should even be easy for us to rule out
The
okay,
minimum
so
capacity for us.
yes, so I see A. Sita, would you love to talk again?
Why not? We always love to hear.
Yeah.
All right, sure. Then kindly explain your answer.
Okay. So just like Prince said, I saw the minimum capacity set to 4, so I took those 2 out.
Right.
And then I saw on the spot instances, so I ruled out D also. So I chose A. It's supposed to be highly available, so the spot instances will not work.
All right. Okay, so Prince, you also chose A. So I'm coming to ask a question. So imagine you are traveling and they say, oh, at least have 100 cities on you. How much will you travel with?
At least have 100 cities on.
Yes, have 100 cities. Uniskakra have 100 cities.
I'll take more than 100 cities.
Correct. So in designing for high availability, the requirement is to have at least 2 instances always running. Now you deploy 2 instances, one in availability zone A, one in availability zone B. So what if one availability zone goes down?
But that's why you deploy the on-demand instances.
Right. But one you have deployed in 2 availability zones, right? One in each zone. And then the entire availability zone goes down. It's not the instance, so the entire availability, the availability zone here is a data center. So if that entire data center goes down, what happens? You are left with 1. You understand? But the requirement is to have 2 instances always running. So you haven't designed for high availability. So the right option is to set the minimum capacity to 4, have 2 running in each availability zone. So that in case one availability zone goes down, you still have 2 running. So the requirement is to have at least 2. So it means that you can have more.
Say the facts say I don't read the whole thing they funny. Just because I saw minimum capacity before, I didn't read the rest.
The rest, aha.
So it actually makes sense.
Yes. So I asked the traveling question because of as Sita was also saying that immediately she saw 4, she ruled it out, which means that because that it will throw you off for the first time because 4 there, but then it says at least, so it means you have the opportunity to choose more. The spot instances are out of the equation because you don't even know the time it will be taken down by AWS. So spot instance they are not part, right? So C and D are out. But then the deployment should be having 4 and then 2 in each availability zone. So whatever happened, you still have 2. Whatever happened, you still have 2. So let's take note of that. That's designing for high availability. So here you are not even thinking about cost. You are not thinking about anything. All you are thinking about is what? High availability. A company wants to build a map. Sita say, hey, Sita as well. No, but I think these questions opens our eyes to some of the things, I mean, that might come, right? And I think this particular question, I've seen it in one of Marik's questions, and I think some other dams that I've solved, I get to see this type of questions. So definitely some of them for design for high availability, this is one of the things that comes. They'll ask you about auto scaling, they will ask you about load balancing, right? And then what again, sir? I think routing and then all those things. Okay. And let me talk about it before I forgot. So while solving the questions, I've discovered that CloudWatch has a feature to be able to start and stop instances, right? There is CloudWatch has the feature to actually start and stop instances. So I think there will be a question on that. So when we see it, I think Mihu and Mihu. And I got to learn this one through these questions. I didn't know. Anyway, a company wants to build a map of its IT infrastructure to identify and enforce policies on resources that pose security risks. The company's security team must be able to query data in the IT infrastructure map and quickly identify security risks. Which solution will meet these requirements with the least operational overhead? A, use RDS to store the data, use SQL query to query the data to identify security risk. B, use Amazon Neptune to store the data and use Sparkle Sparkle to query the data to identify security risks. C, use Amazon Redshift to store the data. Use SQL to query the data to identify security risks. Use Amazon DynamoDB to store the data, and use Particle to query the data to identify security risks. So Particle be partition query language.
And Sparkle be what?
I don't know. Sparkle, I don't know.
The query language, you know, okay, well, I'm saying query language, but
Yeah, query language, SPAR.
You did answer.
Why Judith for answer? What did you do? Okay, so James says
Get the answers.
James says D. Okay, I think let's not waste time on this. Now, here we are looking at map data, right? Mapped or graph data, and then the only database that supports that is Amazon Neptune. So that is just it. RDS stores relational database and Cajon. Redshift is a data warehouse and also on Cajon, right? Because if you want to use Redshift, then it means the data has to go through. And then here we are looking at the least operational overhead. So if you are using Redshift, then the data has to be transformed to a relational database so that you can use SQL to query. DynamoDB, yes, but then it also doesn't store like graph data. So the data would also have to be transformed to the schema of DynamoDB before you can use that language to query it. So Neptune is the only database that stores graph data.
Isaac,
Yep.
please repeat the explanation.
Okay. So Neptune. So okay, let me start with RDS. RDS is just relational database. So like the normal SQL that you would do, select from those things, right? Redshift is a data warehouse. And it's also you also use relational it's a relational kind of, it stores relational data. So you can use the SQL queries to query data from Redshift. DynamoDB is a non-relational database It's a non-relational database, but then and the NoSQL database. But then, since it's a map data, so it's more or less like a graph data, you can't also use DynamoDB. It means that you have to transform the data into a schema that DynamoDB supports, right? And that one says a lot of things will be misplaced. You have to go through a lot of manual processes to fine-tune the data to suit DynamoDB's schema before you can query it. Now, when we talk of graph data or map data, this is the same thing. This is the same thing that you will see on Facebook, right? The Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Snapchat. So the reason why Snapchat, I'm a little old school, so we did go Facebook. So the reason why Facebook will suggest somebody to you is because I am friends with Prince on Facebook. Sita is friends with Prince on Facebook. So per the mapping of the data, Facebook is able to suggest me to Sita that since we share the same mutual friends, we might want to connect, or we might even know each other. Or I have in my bio as an ALX student, Sita has in her bio as ALX student, Prince has in his bio as ALX student. The same is the same thing that this thing that uses LinkedIn, right? Immediately you update your employment or your employment status, and then you choose a certain company. LinkedIn starts to recommend accounts that probably had worked there before or are still working there. Okay, so sometimes when you update your employment and then you choose a company, LinkedIn will want to verify further by asking for your corporate email in case you have a company, a corporate email. It verifies and then now will start suggesting your colleagues to you. So that is what maps or graph data works like. So Neptune is the type of database that supports that kind of data.
Okay, thanks.
Right. But I am surprised this was they say it's hardly would you see like, because this is more or less like data analytics kind of thing. But I mean, once in a while you might have one or two questions
But you
beyond.
know, go make me search the sparkle and the particle. Please, this is possible.
So the particle, they are no say be partition query language, but the Sparkle, I search them right now. They say is the short for. So the Sparkle itself wasn't it doesn't have a full name, but they say it's a short for Sparkle Protocol and RDF query language. What is the full meaning of? So you see, Sparkle, short for Sparkle Protocol and RDF query language. And then particle. Say and trust me try. Well, I don't say we partition query language. Oh, they don't bring full meaning. Yeah, they don't bring full meaning.
Pasha, what is it, Pasha? Pasha, Pasha.
I don't know, sir. That means particle may also refer to partial. They are much like. It looks like it was Stefan's course because when you are querying DynamoDB records, right? You have to specify a partition. It's a partition key that you use to query the records. So when you don't know the partition keys, then you have to run the scan query to actually scan the entire data, right? And if the data
So
has
let's move on.
if the data has a sort key, then you now specify the partition key and the sort key as well. So that one there, I know. The internet safe, no. A company hosts an application on Amazon EC2 instances that run in a single availability zone. The application is accessible by using the transport layer of the Open Systems Interconnection model, OSI model. The company needs the application architecture to have high availability. Which combination of steps will meet these requirements most cost effectively? A says configure new instances in a different availability zone. Use Amazon Route 53 to route traffic to all instances. B, configure a network load balancer in front of the EC2 instances. C, configure a network load balancer for TCP traffic to the instances. Configure an application load balancer for HTTP and HTTPS traffic to the instances. D, create an auto-scaling group for the instances. Configure the auto-scaling group to use multiple availability zones. Configure the auto-scaling group to run application health checks on the instances. And then E, create an Amazon CloudWatch alarm. Configure the alarm to restart EC2 instances that transition to a stopped state. So an application that runs on EC2 instance and then is in a single availability zone. Now the application is accessible by using the transport layer of the OSI model, right? The company needs the application architecture to have high availability. Combinations to ensure high availability. And then costs. So we are looking at costs, cost effectiveness. We are selecting two. Select two. So this question is trickier. Actually, I asked AI because first I chose B because it's in a transport layer, no? Right? If it is an application layer, then I could have looked at, and if it is an application layer too, C wouldn't be correct because it has a network load balancer and then an application load balancer as well. So that is like a lot of cost, right? Because you are charged for the load balancer usage, and I think the number of traffic processed as well. That is the costing for, or the pricing model for load balancers. So this would be out. Either is in the application layer or the transport layer, right? And then this would have also been out as well if it was in the application layer, because configuring a network load balancer wouldn't be it. Now I did AI, and then AI chose D and E, right? Because with configuring a load balancer the same way, you are going to incur some cost. And then since the application is actually like running in a single availability zone, it means that there's not much traffic that is coming in. You get it. So if you configure a network load balancer in front of the applications and already you are scaling up, so D is correct because you need to configure auto scaling group to scale your resources across the availability zones. But it means that whether you are not even having like a lot of traffic, that will overwhelm the instance to the point that it should distribute the load. Then, so this is actually the explanation that I was given. When I finish, I'll go to it, then we'll look at it. Then it's like you are just incurring costs for the load balancer usage because it is always on, right? So you are incurring costs for it. So these two are correct. So in case any instance goes to the stop state, a CloudWatch alarm will be able to restart it, because stop doesn't mean that the instance is like terminated or it's not working. It's just stopped, so it will restart it, right? And then this will also reduce your operational overhead. That is the explanation that I got through the online search and then the AI search. But me originally, I chose B and D. So let's go here and I'll do find network load balance. Right. Hey, this one vex. Okay, that's right. We'll use this. Yeah, right. So, so it says these are the combination D and E, and here is why. So auto scaling, we know what it does. CloudWatch alarm for instance monitoring. So creating a CloudWatch alarm to restart EC2 instances that transition to a stop state helps ensure the continuous availability of the application. If an instance fails or becomes unresponsive, the CloudWatch alarm will automatically restart the instance, reducing downtime and ensuring the application remains accessible. This proactive approach to instance monitoring and management helps maintain high availability without incurring additional cost for manual intervention. Now, A, configuring a different instance and then using Route 53 for traffic routing. So it could provide high availability, but it may not be as cost effective as using auto scaling group, as it requires manual management of instances and traffic routing. Please, can you all hear me?
You go off small, but you come back.
And then off my light, so my Wi-Fi go off. All right. Yeah, so I was on the Route 53, right? Because when you what's it called? Provision a new instance. Here we are not using the auto scaling group here, so it means that you will now have to manage the instances and then the traffic routing yourself. So anytime if you provision a new instance, you have to go to Route 53 and then create your records to route traffic to the instances. Anytime you provision a new one, and it's also not proactive, right? Now, option B, as I said, okay, so it combined option B and then C, configuring a network load balancer, and then option C, configuring network load balancer for TCP traffic and then all those things, or add additional costs associated with load balancer usage, which may not be necessary if the application's traffic is not expected to be high, or if the application doesn't require a layer 7 load balancing. So layer 7 is the application layer. Right. Let me hide this. Okay, so I mean, it was able to convince me, but originally, as I said, my answers was B and D. But as I said here, you are looking at cost effectiveness. So definitely you have to trade off certain stuff, right? So that was what actually like convinced me. Did I even okay? See, I don't know, but for the D there, conk, right? In design for high availability, you need to use auto scaling groups. Let's move on. Or can you catch us? Or you know being talk. Okay, you know being. a company has an application that runs on Amazon EC2 instances in a private subnet. The application needs to process sensitive information from an Amazon S3 bucket. The application must not use the internet to connect to the S3 bucket. Which solution will meet these requirements? So we are looking at resources communicating with each other without using the internet. So A says configure an internet gateway, update the S3 bucket policy to allow access from the internet gateway, update the application to use the new internet gateway, right? So here, immediately you see internet gateway, you rule it out because it is using the internet. B says configure a VPN connection. VPN connection will be through an internet and also will be off. Configure NAT gateway. NAT gateway and so internet stuff, right? It leaves D a VPC endpoint and then updates the S3 bucket policy to allow access from the VPC endpoint, and then update the application to use the new VPC endpoint. Okay, so I see a lot of these. Hey, also idea here.
Ade, my boss. Ade.
Good. Also, how things they go there? It be like if for pray give we all.
So if I do fasting for you, for
No shake.
Justice Wadana, justice.
Make you know why now. When we go count the account, talk plenty for the group is I say.
Near me, dream will happen. My share onyame.
A
Yeah,
company's
believe me.
application. All right. A company's application is running on Amazon EC2 instances within an auto-scaling group behind an elastic load balancer. Based on application histories, based on the application's history, the company anticipates a spike in traffic during a holiday each year. I like these kind of questions. So here we are also looking at operational excellence. A solutions architect must design a strategy to ensure that the auto-scaling group proactively increases capacity to minimize any performance impact on the application users. Which solution will meet these requirements? So A says create an Amazon CloudWatch alarm to scale up the EC2 instances when CPU utilization exceeds 90. Create a recurring scheduled action to scale up the auto-scaling group before the expected period of peak demand. C, increase the minimum and maximum number of EC2 instances in the auto-scaling group during the peak and demand period. D, configure an Amazon simple notification service notification to send alerts when there are auto-scaling EC2 instance launch events. Answers. Okay, Sita says B. Okay, so I'm
This
seeing
question
more.
to be tricky.
Yes, very tricky. So I'm seeing more of B, and I agree. Now, here we are looking at predictable demand or predictable spike in the load, right? So even though this is a valid thing, CloudWatch alarm to scale up EC2 instances when utilization exceeds, but we know that CloudWatch alarm will be used together with auto scaling to do that. And here we are not even looking at the pressure on the CPU, right? We are looking at setting period.
Yeah.
So using this metric wouldn't be it. This is correct. So let me skip and then come here. Now, you increasing the minimum and the maximum number of instances in the auto scaling group during the peak and then demand period might even lead to over provisioning. Right? It might lead to over provisioning. So it means that when you do that, anytime the peak demand time is over, you will have to come back and then reduce the number. Okay. And this is not a good way. It's still will require manual intervention. And then for the notification, because even this one, it will only notify you when there is an instance launch event. So this one, D is actually not part. So it just
So
leaves.
you selected, yeah, see, you do that.
Yeah. So I think, this is one strategy that like I have adopted. Sometimes you just look at the ones that are obviously they are wrong. Then you are left with nearly correct ones. Another question on this thing is, so I think it be this one. A company is implementing a shared storage solution for a media application that the company hosts on AWS. The company needs the ability to use SMB clients to access stored data. Which solution will meet these requirements with the least administrative overhead? A says create a storage gateway, volume gateway. Create a file share that uses the required client protocol. Connects the application server to the file share. B says create an AWS storage gateway, tape gateway. Configure tapes to use Amazon S3. Connect the application server to the tape gateway. C, creates an Amazon EC2 Windows instance. Wait there, I will not continue. Right. Install and configure a Windows file share role on the instance, connect the application server to the file share. Right. And then D says create an Amazon FSX for Windows file server system. Connect the application server to the file system. So here, I think one thing that we need to look at is when under storage gateway, which types of volumes are under volume gateway, right? And then which ones are under tape gateway. The C there is not part, because creating an Amazon, we are looking at the least administrative overhead. So creating a Windows instance means that you will have to manage the EC2 instance. So that one is out. So when we know the different types of gateway, we can search, then we will be able to look at which one is correct. Okay. I'm searching here, then we'll look at it. So as I explained earlier, SMB, right? The Windows file server file system is supported by SMB clients. Oh, somebody explained this thing very nicely sometime. I forget his name. All right. So for volume gateways, right, they support two kind of configurations: stored volumes and then cached volumes. And they integrate with S3, Glacier, and then AWS backup. That's the short thing that I can give. And then for FSX for Windows file server, that one is fully managed, and it's a file system that is accessible over the server message block protocol. So making it compatible with Windows applications, tools, and then services. Right. And then for the volume gateway too, you are looking at when you have your entire data set stored on premises, right? And then you want the data to be asynchronously backed up to AWS. In Tiahano. This is how I selected mine. For me, I chose FSX for Windows File Server file system. So file systems are shared shared file systems. And then the question also says that they are implementing a shared storage solution for a media application that the company hosts on AWS. So here, if there was in any chance talking about probably they are hosting it on-prem, then we look at the storage gateway solutions, right? To say we are all fully aware that for storage gateway solutions and then data sync solutions, we are looking at on-prem to AWS, right? So storage gateway gives you the opportunity to be able to have a shared volume between your a shared storage between your on-prem and then your AWS infrastructure, right? And then the FSX for Windows or the EFS and then all those things are cloud native storage that allows you to implement shared storage between what AWS applications.
Maybe Google this one.
You mean this question?
Yeah, maybe Google it.
SMB. You can see this. And let me put it here. Oh, free deɛ ɛnyɛ ne hina na ɛyɛ o. Hey, where is my flashlight day?
They don't on your lights.
They don't on them.
You are in the off lights, but why?
That's the on farm this time there. Unless morning. Omu your one because I doom so new. Okay. Correct. So, all right. So you chose D, right? And the reason, so FSX for Windows File Server provides a fully managed Windows file system that is accessible over the SME protocol. Now, it eliminates the need for manual setup and management of file servers, as Amazon FSX handles all the administrative tasks, including software updates, backups, monitoring, and then all that. Least administrative overhead. There is minimal administrative overhead because AWS manages the underlying infrastructure, including hardware provisioning, software maintenance, and security updates. This allows the company to focus on, correct. And then the SMB protocol support as well. Now, my interest is in the volume gateway. So for volume gateway, it involves setting up and managing a gateway device, which adds administrative overhead compared to fully managed service like FSX. For tape gateway, there is not suitable for shared storage, accessible via SMB. And then the EC2, I also said it, because you are provisioning another EC2 instance, you will have to manage the instance. So there is administrative burden. Monica too says by
So
using
this kind of question. So once you see, sorry,
yeah, sure. You will fit up.
now they talk say, once you see administrative overhead, it means
You are
they
looking
didn't
for
try
a,
to talk
a
about
managed, yes,
yeah, managed. Okay.
a managed
And
service.
operational overhead more costs or something like that.
Yeah, so cost and then the need for manual intervention, like manual setup.
Yeah,
Well, because for storage gateway, if you are using a storage gateway, right, you have the infrastructure. If you remember the lab on file shared storage with storage gateway, you see there was already an instance which was mimicking an on-prem. So it means that if it was on your on-prem, you will have to set up the gateway agent, just like how data sync also works on your on-prem. And then now set up
and then set up another one
another one at AWS, and then you set up a shared storage between them. So the data will be saved into the shared storage, and then you'll be able to access it from AWS as well as your on-prem. If you put the data from your AWS, you will still be able to see it at on-prem. Data sync is for migration.
But AWS storage, the volume gateway also works with SM. Or no, like I asked.
No, so the volume gateway, it doesn't work with so the gateway is more just like a pipeline, but then the storage types that it's able to work with are there. So you are able to set up your file share, and then you can tell it to sync data to S3 or even the FSX for Windows, FSS for Lastar. There are a lot of options that you can have your storage gateway sync files into it. but the main storage that it will use is a network file system. That will be the central storage between the on-prem and then the AWS services. So it's just like you setting up EFS for 2 EC2 instances.
Okay, okay. All right.
So 23, a company has migrated a fleet of hundreds of on-premises virtual machines to Amazon EC2 instances. The instances run a diverse fleet of Windows Server versions along with several Linux distributions. The company wants a solution that will automate inventory and update of the operating systems. The company also needs a summary of common vulnerabilities of each instance for regular monthly reviews. What solution? What should a solutions architect recommend to meet these requirements? So
I will go up for look at read the question.
all right. So the main thing is just here. The company wants a solution that will automate inventory and updates of the operating systems. The company also needs a summary of common vulnerabilities of each instance for regular monthly reviews. Okay. How you go off light? 10, 10. Okay, Sita chose B. Okay, so for this one, please, is my internet okay? Like, are you hearing me clearly?
Yeah, we hear you.
Zoom is telling me my connection is what. Okay. So you need something that will regularly, right? I don't know how to put it, but it will regularly do checks and gives you your report. All right, and then something that will also, update your systems. Now let's look at how Inspector works. For Amazon Inspector, what you do is that you use the service to run the checks. All right, to run the checks And normally it gives you what? The result is what? I've forgotten, but we'll just look at it. But it's just a one-time thing, right? Now, okay, that's only the only answers that people selected. That's fine. Shield Advanced, we know, is for DDoS, right? So, and put the account, and then config is also to audit, do configuration management, and then audit. So that one is also not part. So the two are out. So we are left with A and B. Now, Security Hub is something that I just learned today. Is able to get reports from Guard Duty, CloudTrail, and then including Inspector. All right. So in this scenario, it's the Security Hub and then the Patch Manager. Okay. So now let's go into the, I think I looked it up here. Anyway, I also choose B though when I was doing it. All right. So correct. And then ChatGPT also. All right, so this says A. So by utilizing AWS Systems Manager, Patch Manager, the company can automate inventory and update of the operating systems for both Windows Server and the Linux distributions. Additionally, configure AWS Security Hub to provide the company with a summary of common vulnerabilities for regular monthly reviews, helping to ensure the security and compliance of the fleet of instances. But let's go into why. So on the B, Inspector. So B is not suitable because Inspector primarily focuses on assessing the security and compliance, right, of the applications deployed on EC2 instances, rather than managing operating system. While operating system update, while it can provide findings related to vulnerabilities, it doesn't directly address the requirement for automating inventory and update of the operating system. This sentence, it be wrong, but then the whole point is that Inspector is mostly for security and compliance. So, okay, do you have sensitive data, right? Do you have sensitive data that you are storing? Is it compliant with the data protection? You understand? Do you have something that is hiding these personal information from other people? Do you have the correct security measures in place? So it's mostly for compliance checks, right? That's basically for what Inspector does. And then yes, even though it can give you insight as to some vulnerabilities, but as I said, it is not something that it satisfies the requirements to do it regularly and then for monthly reports, right? Correct. This is what. So Security Hub provides comprehensive view of security posture of your AWS environment, and it includes findings from AWS services such as Guard Duty, Inspector, and Config. So it takes all these information from these services, and then I will give you overview of all the what's it called, the reports that it's gathered. So Security Hub here fits best. Please, I hope we are okay. Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
So some of these ones, it will come tricky. Means if I didn't know, I only had to learn it like today, and then I had to like watch videos and then a lot of things on them. So that is mostly the purpose of learning these dumps. So as I said, use them to learn rather than trying to, gets the questions correct. And I mean, if you get it correct, that's good. And you really know that, okay, this is it, then that's fine. And as you can see, some of them, there are obvious answers in there. But the ones that we don't know, you use it as a learning curve and then learn. Right? You might meet a similar stuff there that might even have might be the same answer. So 24, a company wants to add its existing AWS usage costs to its operation cost dashboard. A solutions architect needs to recommend a solution that will give the company access to its usage costs programmatically. The company must be able to access cost data for the current year and forecasts costs for the next 12 months. Which solution will meet these requirements with least operational overhead? A says access the usage cost related data by using the AWS Cost Explorer API with pagination. B, access usage cost related data by using downloadable AWS Cost Explorer report.cv files. C, configure the AWS budget actions to send usage cost data to the company through FTP. D, creates AWS budget reports for usage cost data. Send the data to the company through SMTP. Also, this one they go explain. The way you choose a fast part, they go explain. Any other choice? Okay, Sita. Okay, which one is pagination? This one, I don't know how to explain it, so we'll go into the search that I did. It's not something that I'm able to have it off head, so that one will just read it.
Hey, James, you say A. The pagination alone, they make at the food disease. Access to its usage cost programmatically.
Yes. So programmatically, for me, the programmatically does it for me. So if you are accessing it programmatically, then you are using API calls, right? Forget let's even
That's
let's even forget about
that's why I chose
the pagination or whatever it is. So, but if you are accessing your calls programmatically, then you are using API calls. That's like basically it. But the pagination also has something there. So let's just look at it.
Why don't go Adam? Why don't you just come out from the
So pagination, the Cost Explorer API supports pagination, which allows the company to efficiently retrieve large volumes, of cost data without overwhelming resources or exceeding API limits. So pagination ensures that the data retrieval is scalable and can handle varying amount of cost data over time. And then here you are looking at 12 months. So it's like a dozen. All right. So you are looking at 12 months data. You are forecasting your cost for the next 12 months. So I think but I mean, the fact that you are doing programmatical calling and that there is API in there, it does it for me, right? Because the Akahina is not a programmatic stuff. way you will have to download it manually. .cv. And so it's just sending the data through a file transfer protocol. So it's just like you having a CV file and then sending it over, or SMTP is for messaging, like for emails, right? For instance, it's for emails, and I'm
Yeah. It's for emails.
Yeah, it's for emails. Yes, so that's it. Did I board? Yes, I didn't board in this one.
Anybody tell you say this thing is not for IT for everything, lie.
Oh, then lie, because I mean, the question that talks about the OSI models. I mean, if you don't know OS,
the OSI model, no, then your head. What is OSI model?
the OSI models, the people who they did the industry, you know, everybody they get them off head.
And maybe everybody say everyone. No, somebody don't know what the third layer be. What is
B, me safe,
second layer?
Charlie,
We
me
need
safe.
first layer. We need.
We be free.
Because me, you do. I they recite the thing before I get the whole thing again.
Mm-hmm.
There's come sit there first.
They are scouts.
AL Expo.
Say it again. I'm always saying it.
Sorry.
Yeah, we are sorry. Okay, they have scammed you.
Whatever survey they bring, I will write it in there.
So 25. A company runs an
Hey,
application.
innocent.
Is that?
Some innocence there. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So a company runs an application on several Amazon EC2 instances that stores persistent data on an elastic file system, EFS. The company needs to replicate the data to another AWS region by using an AWS managed service solution. Which solution will meet these requirements most cost effectively? A, use EFS to EFS backup solution to replicate the data to an EFS file system in another region. B, run a nightly script to copy data from the EFS file system to an Amazon S3 bucket. Enable S3 cross-region replication on the S3 bucket. C, create a VPC in another region. Establish a cross-region VPC peer. Run a nightly rsync to copy the data from the original region to the new region. Use AWS backup to create a backup plan with a rule that takes a daily backup and replicates it to another region. Assign the EFS file system resource to the backup plan. This one, me, I don't know. But there is an EFS to EFS feature with the AWS backup service. I chose it. I asked ChatGPT, the first one, it chose what? I think it chose B, running the nightly script to copy the data from the EFS and then to an S3. And then with the cross-region replication, the data will be replicated to S3. Yes, ask him again. Then he give me A. I open new query.
The same ChatGPT.
Yeah, I open new query. They give me A. But I think when I asked Monica, let me see. EFS 2 EFS. Yes, this one chose A, and this one this one chose B. And okay, so this was the second query. This one choose A. And then this one choose B. So this, I think this was the first query. I'm not sure my phone is what I see. I think the first one, it was telling me EFS to EFS, no, it's a lot of cost. So option A may incur higher cost as it involves using additional AWS managed service, specifically designed for EFS backups, which may not be necessary for simple replication requirements. Let's even look at the question again. The company needs to replicate the data to another region by using an AWS managed service solution. So if you are saying that it will give you a cost by using another managed service, then what does that mean? Read about. And yeah, so Monica chose A. The way there, I just put asterisk for the we are left out. In case something like this cover, go with your instinct and choose one. For me, I feel like the A was it, right? So with the backup, but D also was trying to make sense to me because you create a backup rule, right? So the backup is already will be done. But what I've not actually explored is the fact that it can do the backup cross region. So if I am trusting AWS that it won't trick me with a wrong answer, then definitely then D can also be correct, right? Because yes, you can do the backup and then you select the file system you assign the EFS file system resource to the plan. That can be done. But then there is a feature called EFS to EFS that will just, replicate the data to an EFS file system in another region.
I would have chosen the because I don't hear of the EFS to EFS. And what is the nightly scripts thing? The nightly where it be only night time they run or
that's why I don't understand. Probably yes. Probably it's like off peak hours, like off
peak hours.
When the system is idle, just like how we normally run the backups, right? You normally run the backups. So yeah, D made sense, but so this one there.
Them all they make sense. That's why the question is the most cost
effective.
Then when the most they don't even say multiple ones they be correct, but one the most effective.
Now and then with AWS backup, I think you pay for the per data transferred, right? Yeah, you pay for per data transferred across region. And then the B will be correct because if you are looking like cost effective, S3 storage is like S3
I'm thinking
storage.
I'm thinking because if you run a script, you just run like during off peak hours, then you could do the replication too.
Yes.
I don't think it's so cost effective, cost incurring like that.
Like that's correct because the backup, it will send a file to an S3 bucket first in the same region, and then replication will be done. You get it to another region, which costs lesser than doing a data transfer out to another region. I feel like B makes sense. B makes sense. But we will left one. So in case if you get something like this, sit down. Don't think about it. Don't spend more than 2 minutes on this. Just choose it and then leave.
Just
Right?
do inshallah vibe.
And then add comments. This is too difficult. And then
Hey, but it's true. Like on the most serious note, if you add comments, you tell them your understanding. If you fetch you marks,
yeah.
especially because they're going to read the answers. You give them a logical understanding of how you see it and why you choose what you choose.
It really says a company. Hey, where's this thing? All right. A company runs a web application that is deployed on Amazon EC2 instances in the private subnet of a VPC. An application load balancer that extends across the public subnet directs web traffic to the EC2 instances. The company wants to implement new security measures to restrict inbound traffic from the ALB to the EC2 instances while preventing access from other source inside or outside the private subnet of the EC2 instances. Which solution will meet this requirement? So here we are looking at security groups, right? Probably traffic is coming from everywhere to the instances, but now they will just want to restrict the traffic just to take traffic from the ALB to the EC2 instance. So I think this one should be one of the easy nuts to crack. So A, configure a route table in a route table to direct traffic from the internet to the private IP addresses of the EC2 instance. I think already we've looked at this one, and I said something like this. It doesn't make sense. Yes. And then B, configure a security group of the EC2 instance to only allow traffic that comes from the security group of the ALB. And then C says move the EC2 instance into the public subnet. This one also doesn't make security sense.
Nah, really. But I say you want to restrict inbound traffic.
So yes, so if you move it, then you're exposing it to the public. And then D also says configure the security group for the ALB to allow any TCP traffic on any port. So because the whole thing is restricting the traffic from ALB to the EC2. So this one makes sense. Configure the security group for the EC2 instances to only allow traffic that comes from the security group for the ALB. So 27.
Derek, they ask you something.
Oh, so all these be questions from the images you shared. Some. The images are different too. And then these ones are also from another person. But some of these questions are in the images actually.
So you mean say some of them?
Yeah, some of them repeat. I mean, be the same question bank, then they come out that. But be then the day we write the CCP, I think for about 7 to 10 questions, Judith is here. We had the exact questions because when I say
questions.
Yeah, when I say she says that now, she also had the same question. I was like, hey, that's why we said we'll not write on that day again because it looks like It looks like
Ajay.
them Shadapa give me that quick questions.
That's why you change your day.
Yes. You did that, I mean, what? A company has deployed its newest product on AWS. The product runs in an auto-scaling group behind a network load balancer. The company stores the product's objects in an Amazon S3. Did you say I slept off? I'm back. Udakakra. So I was telling Praise that the day we wrote our papers, we almost had like 10 similar questions. That is why we have decided not to write on that day. The company stores the company stores the product's objects in an Amazon S3 bucket. The company recently experienced malicious attacks against its systems. The company needs a solution that continuously monitors for malicious activities in the AWS account, workloads, and access patterns to the S3 bucket. The solution, that Wednesday there. The solution must also report suspicious activity and display the information on a dashboard. Which solution will meet these requirements? So I think this should be easy after the other question on. So the company needs a solution.
I think it's
That continuously monitors for malicious activities continuously in the AWS account, workloads, and access patterns to the S3 buckets. The solution must also report suspicious activities and display the information on a dashboard. All right, yes, that's correct. So we are looking at C. All right, so you configure guard duty to monitor and then report findings too. Was it? This one go back.
Ghana. Hey, then why you doing?
A company is storing backup files by using Amazon S3 standard storage. The files are accessed frequently for 1 month. However, let me finish reading, then I'll go talk. However, the files are not accessed after 1 month. The company must keep the files indefinitely. Which storage solution will meet these requirements most cost effectively? A. Configure S3 intelligent steering to automatically migrate objects. B. Create an S3 lifecycle configuration to transition objects from S3 standard to S3 Glacier deep archive after 1 month. C. Create an S3 lifecycle configuration to transition objects from S3 standard to S3 infrequent access. And then the create S3 lifecycle to transition object to one zone. Okay, so we have B. So Habis ChatGPT this question. You can't tell me say what's infrequent access. So said then because because even though they tell me say the companies the thing says they have to keep their thing indefinitely. So it means that it might be accessed. Wait, make a go search. Where I tell us the question says the question says the files will not be accessed after 1 month. Then he say, sorry for the oversight.
Really?
They
You say oversight. Hey,
Oh, ChatGPT can be funny.
You are they do that thing. Yeah, I put now any oversight in here.
Jesus.
hey, oversight fun.
See, you can't
Yeah,
tell me
this is
here.
sorry for the.
You can't tell me here is why. So this will be the question, right? Yeah, then it choose D.
One zone.
Create a life cycle configuration to transition objects from S3 to one zone. Now here is why. Cost effectiveness. One zone infrequent access is a storage class, blah blah blah. It offers lower storage cost compared to S3 standard and standard IE and making it cost effective by creating, all these things. Now you can't tell me, however, the option B, it's not suitable for this scenario because S3 Glacier Deep Archive is intended for long-term archive data that is rarely accessed. Since the requirement specifies that the files must be kept indefinitely and may require access. We are kind of the question stated clearly that the objects are not accessed after 1 month. I apologize for the oversight. Thank you for pointing that out. Given that the objects are not accessed after 1 month, the most cost-effective solution would indeed be where you can choose this one.
Make I see the question again. I want to see something.
In this backup file, the files are accessed frequently for 1 month. However, the files are not accessed after 1 month, and the company must keep the files indefinitely. So it means that there is no clue of when it will be accessed again or retrieved again. So with this,
But this
yes,
question, I dey understand why ChatGPT no like you see the oversight because you see if you say the files are not accessed after 1 month, it doesn't necessarily mean that they will not be accessed.
okay,
Like Kwabena, listen what I thought.
yeah,
If you like the penny they use, right? You use them like every day, way like in a month, you know get class, so you know use your pen. Does that necessarily mean that you won't use your pen again?
right.
No, but
You see the question
if
they
I
don't
may come
say
in,
the question they don't say that the files will not be accessed after 1 month. They say the files are not accessed.
Accessed
That
after
does not
1 month.
necessarily mean that they will not be accessed.
Right,
But
so if I may
which
come
one
in,
is
I think
most
that is
cost
where.
effective?
right. And we are also looking
Yeah,
at
but I also think even for Glacier, the files kept there, they are kept. That's why they are not destroyed. They are kept there because in future, there is a possibility of we going back to that file.
so
But
it's
it's
like
not
you are looking
something
at
we use. Probably it could be 5 years, we will not even use it. So why do you have to pay for something that we will not be using anytime soon?
So always, with cost effectiveness, you are looking at the trade-offs, right? And then we are looking at indefinite storage. So the deep archive is best suited because infrequent access one zone is still the cost, right?
No, that one they be wrong. Why? What are they talking about? In case the file will be accessed again, because the scenario does not say the file would not be
The
accessed again.
access,
It just
yeah,
says that it is not accessed after 1 month.
yeah.
So yes, in effect, it means that Glacier is a good example. But then, if it will be accessed and you go save for Glacier, it retrieve my it check pass say the infrequent access.
The retrieval cost be higher. So if you want it like faster, you have to
Exactly.
pay more.
Exactly, you pay more to get it faster. So I
Mhm.
understand ChatGPT. Oh no, onyewe.
So the word says indefinitely.
I still
So
disagree with ChatGPT.
yeah,
I mean, why would you say
AWSF strict ChatGPT? Now you.
Charlie, so
ChatGPT cry a trick now. Yeah, I mean, why
Jesus.
eh,
A data analytics company wants to migrate its batch processing system to, honestly, me, if I see questions like this, I just go read some ways so I may just be because hey,
But see the way the answers say, please.
the answers. A
I
data,
take the batch memory.
a data analytics company wants to migrate its batch processing system to AWS. The company receives thousands of small data files periodically during the day through FTP. An on-premises batch job processes the data files overnight. However, the batch job takes hours to finish running. The company wants the AWS solution to process incoming data files as soon as possible with minimum changes to the FTP client that sends the files. The solution must delete the incoming data files after the files have been processed successfully. Processing for each file needs to take 3 to 8 minutes. Which solution will meet this requirement? A. Use an EC2 instance that runs an FTP.
Add in the most operationally efficient way.
Charlie, these requirements in the most operationally efficient way. So A says use Amazon EC2 instance that runs an FTP server to store incoming files as objects in Amazon S3 Glacier Flexible Retriever. I hope you people understand. Because the files itself doesn't need to be stored in the first place. It should be deleted immediately.
Yeah.
Right. Now, B says
after it's processed.
B says, hey, wait. Flexible retriever. Still, the cost they high, Anna. But forget about job using Amazon Event Bridge rules to invoke. No. B. Use an Amazon EC2 instance that runs an FTP server to store incoming files on an Amazon Elastic Block Store volume. Now, this will reduce latency between the storage and then the EC2 instance into like a little bit faster. Configure a job queue in AWS batch and use Amazon Event Bridge rules to evoke the job to process the files nightly from the EBS volume. Delete the files after the job has processed the files. So a manual you
can
the deletion, but I think it makes sense more. C. Use AWS Transfer Family to create an FTP server to store incoming files on Elastic Block Store volume. Configure a job queue in AWS batch. Use an Amazon S3 event notification when each files arrive to invoke the job in AWS batch. Delete the files after the job has processed these files. D. Use AWS Transfer Family to create an FTP server to store incoming files in Amazon S3 standard. Create a Lambda function to process the files and delete the files after they are processed. Use S3 event notification to invoke the Lambda function when the files arrive. D works for me. But then, as I said, B also makes a lot of sense, right? But then, if the jobs are done, you have to delete the files after that. So it's like there is a manual intervention.
But the D,
so the D, it's the Lambda that does everything. Right? So the Lambda processes the files and then deletes the files after they are processed. So it's an SNS notification, sorry, an event notification. Okay, Judith post something here. Yeah, this sounds a lot easier. Judith, this option is most. We can read. So Judith
Hey,
post.
then you then we post.
This option is the most operationally efficient because it uses transfer family to create an FTP server that can store incoming files in Amazon S3 standard, which is low cost and highly available storage service. It uses Lambda to process the files and delete them after they are processed, which is a serverless and scalable solution, right? That does not require any batch scheduling or infrastructure management. It also uses S3 event notification to invoke the Lambda function when the files arrive, which enables a near real-time processing of the incoming data file.
If you my network or Fabna network, no.
Then it be my network. You dey hear me now?
Fabna network.
Yeah, then it be my network. You dey hear me now?
Fabna, your network is sing songs. That
It be okay now.
go right now for first time. I call it. Go right now for first time.